Hello everybody, welcome today and greetings on the Lunacy Festival. Of course, in the Southern Hemisphere you're still coming out of winter, going into spring, where we're coming out of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, going into the autumn, and that for the Celtic tradition is going into the harvest. And here on Ireland Islands where I'm living, we have indeed been harvesting. We've been having our new potatoes for a little while. We're now harvesting, of course, our lettuce, which comes up really early, but we've started to eat our courgettes. Our plums have got ripe on the plum tree, and there's a few other things coming along in the garden too, so very much we're into the harvest time. I'd like to talk to you today actually about prayer, because one of our newsletter subscribers, Carol Joy, wrote to me the other day and said, "What is prayer to you?" And it really got me thinking. So now that it's fresh in my mind, I'm going to share it with you all. When I was growing up as a child, I was taught to pray by my parents, and every night as we went to bed we had to kneel down beside our bed, make the sign of the cross, put our hands together in prayer, and then we would say our prayers, and it would be, "Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this night be at my side, to light and guard, to rule and guide." And then we'd go on to say, "God bless Mammy and Daddy," and we'd name all my brothers and sisters, and then we might say a few more prayers, the Our Father, the Hail Mary, and so on. That's how it was then. And of course we went to Mass every Sunday. In our house we didn't pray the Rosary, but in some of my friends' houses we did, and I often had to kneel down in that family home and say the Rosary with them, kneeling against a chair, and saying the Our Father, the 10 Hail Marys, the Glory be to the Father, and then you went through the glorious mysteries and the sorrowful mysteries and so on. So that's all in my memory, but I don't do any of that today, I have to say. But just to finish, I suppose, what I used to do, because as a young adult then, training to be a priest, we used to have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd say morning prayer in the oratory together from the Book of Divine Office, and then we would meditate for half an hour, and then we'd have Mass. And then we'd go on and have our breakfast, but during the day then we'd have to go back into the church for afternoon prayer, for evening prayer, for night prayer, and so on. So, you know, prayer was something you did in those days. And when I came to live in Ireland as a priest at this stage, and now trying to learn how to live as a hermit, I continued with that. I still thought of prayer as something you did. And so in the little house that I had, which was a house of hospitality for anybody who wanted to come and visit or stay overnight, we had a little prayer room, and every morning and every evening we had prayer. And that prayer was a little bit more spontaneous. Like, people could share their thoughts and their own personal prayers. They could choose a song to sing. We used to sing, I don't know if any of you are ever familiar with the charismatic movement, where people used to sing what they called in tongues, which is a very spontaneous way to sing and make sounds. So it was a little bit more spontaneous, but it was still doing. Then in 1996, you see, I left the Catholic Church altogether. And after that, things sort of fell apart a little bit in terms of the way I had known about prayer. I continued to have a Mass every Sunday, but it was very creative style Mass, and anything happened. We ended up not using bread and wine at all some of the time. We ended up using the fresh fruits from our garden, for example, instead of bread, and we used water from the Holy Well instead of wine, because some of us didn't want to be drinking alcohol. So things began to really change, and eventually I began to get embarrassed, actually. I began to feel I was a bit of a fraud, because here I was saying I'm a priest, saying I'm a monk, and when people ask me how do I pray, I sort of say, well, I go for a walk, I work in the garden, I spend time out on my own, I occasionally do sort of meditation where I try to really calm my mind, calm my body, and just be present. That's about it. So I'd be saying to myself, shouldn't I be doing more prayer? If I'm meant to be a monk, shouldn't I be sort of, praying 7 times a day or something? because I used to tell our pilgrimage groups that that's how the monks of the past used to pray. They prayed 7 times a day. So, but something actually underneath all this doubt, all this letting go, all this searching, something was emerging, which actually I wasn't that aware of. And it only became crystallized really with this message from an email from Carol Joy the other day, where she asked me if I wouldn't mind telling her what prayer is to me or how I pray. And I was fresh in the morning, I was fresh out of bed, and my mind was clear, and I just wrote her an answer. And she wrote back to me and said, thank you very much for that gift. And she had laid out my answer in poetic form. It turned out I had written it in verses without knowing it. I just wrote it as prose, but it turned out to be sort of very poetic. So I'm going to finish by reading that to you today, and not giving you any other answers. It'll just get you thinking, and it's also printed in the newsletter. So here's what I wrote, almost exactly, I think, to Carol Joy the other day. When I came to live on Arran as a hermit, prayer was something I did. There were fixed times in the day for prayer. Prayer was worship in song, in body position, in psalms, in biblical readings, in invocations and supplications. That's all gone. Prayer now is being, not doing. It's being in tune, being on track, being present, being in the moment. Prayer is being immersed in wonder. As I watch the birds on the feeder, as I contemplate the amazing sunset, as I feel the calmness of the weather and the sea. Prayer is being open to surprise, to intuition, to the unexpected email, to the issue that needs attention in the moment. Prayer is being rooted in a silent presence that is always there, listening and watching for the subtle stirring of the waters. So please write to me if you think you have thoughts on that subject. I think it's an ongoing discussion maybe. I'd love to hear from you, and that's what this newsletter is all about. It's about us exchanging, giving and taking, and supporting each other, especially in our spiritual lives. So, on a rainy day here on the Aran Islands, I wish you the best until we talk again in about 6 weeks' time. Bye!